If you know, you know. And if you know what time it is, then you know it's time for y'all to get this work. Time to go to the Aki University. So Canelo Alvarez came out and stated that he have done more than these fighters on the pound-for-pound #1 list, referring to Lomachenko and Terence Crawford when he got asked. So he basically stating that he have a better resume than these guys. So how come he's not pound-for-pound #1? He stated that a lot of people hate him, and that's why he's not going to be pound-for-pound #1. So he believes he's being hated on. So Canelo Alvarez is playing the victim, and he's stating that he basically pound-for-pound #1. Now, like I stated before, he got a good case to be a top 5 pound-for-pound. However, how can you be pound-for-pound #1 when you're not #1 in your division, let alone wanting to be pound-for-pound #1 in the sport? So if you told Andrade he's too boring, that's why you don't want to fight him. However, you fight a Rocky Fielding, a guy that got knocked out in the first round to get that strap. So you try to get it the easy way, just like you did when you fought Smith when Andrade had the WBO title. Keep in mind, Canelo Alvarez wasn't a champion. Andrade was a champion in the meantime. He was calling out Canelo Alvarez, calling him a bitch, and he told him he had no cojones. And what did Canelo Alvarez do? He didn't fight Andrade. And as soon as Andrade vacated the belt due to promotional problems, Canelo Alvarez fought Smith when Smith was the champion. So that's what I'm saying. He did the same thing to Charlo. He became the French fries champion. The franchise champion, avoiding Charlo, just like Riddick Bowe back in the day when he threw the belt to the trash when Lennox Lewis was his mandatory. So if you want to be pound-for-pound #1, the first step you have to do is fight the best in your division. And that's the likes of Andrade and Charlo. These are the guys that will define you and elevate your career to a pound-for-pound #1 status. However, ironically enough, these are the same fighters he's avoiding, and he ducked officially even to Jermell Charlo at 154 when Golden Boy had to let Charlo go, since Golden Boy didn't oblige and fulfill the contract of Jermell Charlo by giving him the Canelo Alvarez fight, because Canelo didn't want it at the time, and they had to let Jermell Charlo go. And he ended up signing with Al Heyman. That being said, that's the same thing Canelo Alvarez did to Jermell Charlo and Andrade. So you're going to play victim now and say that to be pound-for-pound #1, you have to have the best resume. Yeah, you're not lying on that part. So let's talk about it. Even though you're maneuvering and avoiding the best fighters in your division, let's talk about who has the best resume in boxing. So like I said before, if you want to be pound-for-pound #1, you have to fulfill 4 categories, or at least be better than all these fighters in the game when it comes to these 4 categories in particular. One of them is fighting the best and not maneuvering and picking your fights, like fighting Ricky Hatton brother, 147-pounder at 154. That's one of them. When a guy's not even a champion, when a guy is not even a fighter at your division, and some way, somehow, he moves up in weight and fight Canelo Alvarez for a vacant belt. And that's not Ricky Hatton. However, that's Ricky Hatton brother. Maneuvering is part of it. And the fact that you fight fighters on the way out the door. I mean, even a Kovalev is a punch or two from retirement. He stated if Yard beat him, then he would have retired. And keep in mind, Yard was a punch or two away from knocking Kovalev out. That being said, if you're going to compete with a guy like Terence Crawford, the last undisputed champion in the world, something that you was trying to accomplish at 160, however, you vacated the belts because you didn't like the smoke down the street. You peeped Charlo in one of the streets and Andrade on the other side of the street. So you were like, you know what? Forget this. I'm going to go up to New York City. I'm going to go north to Kovalev since he's on his way out. That's the reason why. You got Terence Crawford. It's smoke season for him. He's calling out Errol the Truth Spence. Meanwhile, Canelo Alvarez, the closest thing to an Errol Spence in his division is an Andrade. and a Charlo. And what did he do? He said, absolutely not. They too boring. That excuse is so dusty, I have to wipe it off before I expose it. That being said, that's why you can't claim you pound for pound #1. So let's talk about the resume. Keep in mind, Floyd Money Mayweather, who dominated Canelo Alvarez, the closest thing to a Floyd Mayweather today is a Terence Crawford, a guy who switched styles, a dominant fighter, dominated every fighter he'd been in the ring against, and either stopped him or just killed him over 12 rounds. Meanwhile, Canelo Alvarez, he struggles when he fights the best. And that's another category you got to fulfill when it comes to being the pound for pound #1 in the sport of boxing. Like I said, it's 4 categories. It's not ducking any smoke, is how dominant you are in the ring, is who you fought, and how would you will do fighting at each division in the sport against these champions that's around on the top 10 pound for pound. How would you do in every weight division? And Canelo Alvarez won't do too well at welterweight if he was a smaller fighter. Can you imagine Canelo Alvarez moving up 3 divisions or 4 divisions and fighting at welterweight against the likes of Errol Spence and Terence Crawford? And obviously, he ain't fighting the best at 160. What makes you think he's going to fight the best at 147? And even then, he won't do too well. Matter of fact, even at 147, let's say that's his natural weight, he still will lose to the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford of the world. So we all know he definitely wouldn't fulfill that category in particular. Just like no ducking category. That being said, Terence Crawford does. So let's talk about the resume. Like I stated earlier, yeah, Canelo Alvarez, it ain't no secret, he has a great resume. However, every time he stepped up, the fight was close. Trout, that fight was almost a draw. It was the knockdown that separated them, and it was an open scoring where they had Canelo Alvarez up the whole night, and the judges had it as a massacre. And to make matter worse, Canelo Alvarez, he fought Floyd Mayweather after that. And a lot of people try to act like that loss ain't there and everybody lose to Floyd. So what's the big deal? But they don't want to give Floyd Mayweather his credit, right? However, Canelo Alvarez lost to a grandpa version of a Floyd Mayweather, a guy that had to move up a 5th weight division when Canelo Alvarez was at his bully weight division. And he didn't just lose, he lost every single round. And he had a draw out of it on one of the scorecards, showing you how biased are the judges. So if anything, you're not being mistreated. They actually showing you favoritism. Moving on, he fought Lara after that. And keep in mind, I had Lara winning 8 rounds to 4. They robbed Lara. So he never gave Lara the rematch. And then he avoided Charlo and Andrade at the time, fought Smith, the guy who took the vacant title away from Andrade because Andrade had promotional issues at the time. Then moved up and fought Gennady Golovkin. And he fought Cotto on the way out. That too. But Gennady Golovkin, that fight in particular, it was a draw. I had Canelo Alvarez winning that fight. However, the first fight was a draw. Another close fight. The second fight was another close fight. However, Canelo Alvarez pulled it off. Then after that, he fought, I believe, Rocky Fielding, a guy coming off a loss, and he fought him for the WBA title, the regular WBA title at 168, when Rocky Fielding just got knocked out in the first round. So you see the maneuvering that's going on. Meanwhile, he fought Daniel Jacob after that, claiming that he wanted to be undisputed. And Daniel Jacob, with all the respect, he already had a knockout loss and another loss to Gennady Golovkin. Even though I felt Danny beat Gennady Golovkin, so to each his own. But he fought Daniel Jacob. However, he didn't want to fight Andrade and Charlo, and he vacated the belts. And he also vacated his IBF belt and didn't fight Lomachenko. So all these top fights that you had is you didn't fulfill another category, and that's how dominant you are. So if we compare you to Terence Crawford, the true pound for pound, because you could make a better case for Lomachenko because he's more dominant than the Canelo. However, Lomachenko ducked the Manny Pacquiao, and he also avoided Devin Haney, even today, a green version of Devin Haney, even though he claimed Floyd Mayweather is his dream fight, dominated. Even a regular champion like Jeff Horn, he gave Manny Pacquiao the work. I had Manny winning, but he gave Manny Pacquiao the work. It was a close fight. However, Terence Crawford, he massacred him. And that's what I'm trying to point out here, that how dominant you are matters. Floyd Mayweather was pound for pound #1 because there was no question he was the most dominant, didn't avoid no smoke, and he fought everybody, including the Canelo, and schooled a guy like Canelo 12 rounds to none. So Canelo Alvarez acting like people are not being fair toward him, but keep in mind, Ring Magazine, and that's owned by Golden Boy, they have Terence Crawford and Lomachenko #1 and 2. And they have Canelo Alvarez #3. And that's his promoter. Oscar De La Hoya owns Ring Magazine. So, if anything, they showing you favoritism. So, keep getting that French fries belt to avoid the maneuver. And if you really want to be pound for pound #1, fight the best. And this goes out to all the Canelo Alvarez fans that claim Canelo Alvarez is pound for pound #1 and that I'm hating. However, y'all can have it both ways. Y'all can't justify Canelo Alvarez ducking and then y'all want to make him pound for pound #1. Which one is it? Either you want him to fight the best and he need to prove it in order to be pound for pound #1, or be this cash cow and wants to maneuver and not fight the best and fight old fighters and fighters that's been knocked out before, that took losses, that look more beatable, and claim that the undefeated fighters and the tough fighters that's going to elevate his career to pound for pound #1 if he's able to pull these fights off, then those fights in particular, you know, y'all claim they boring. Y'all don't want to see those. So y'all want to make all these dusty excuses that we got to brush off before we expose, because we done exposed them time and time again. Then y'all want to turn around and call Canelo Alvarez pound for pound #1, acting like it's us that's treating him unjustly when it's his own promoter, the own Ring Magazine, and they have him listed #3. Because you can't be that biased, or your list won't even be that credible for people to follow. You somewhat have to be credible or people won't take you seriously, and Ring Magazine wouldn't be even a thing. That's why if it's up to Oscar, he will have all his fighters on the pound for pound list that he promotes if he could actually pull that off. However, they being as biased as they can toward you, Canelo Alvarez, so you better appreciate it. Instead of trying to act like you from the coincidental list when in fact you on the hope list. I mean, you got a whole French fries title and you out here complaining. So that goes to all the Canelo Alvarez fans. Check out Split Decision, because just like I took Professor Nim to my IQ University and I made him my student, that's exactly what I just did to y'all. So y'all can hate on my drip all y'all want, but at the end of the day, y'all can't disagree with the facts that I'm bringing up. If you're allergic to the truth, then the truth will hurt. So I wish you good luck. However, if you let the truth set you free, then you're going to live happily ever after. So welcome to the IQ University, where it's free to subscribe. So go ahead, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to get notified every time we post to go live. And check out my new show, Split Decision, where I just bodied Professor Nim. So I'm going to put it in the description box below, episode 6. It was a classic episode, the best one yet. I talked about Andrade and Charlo because people trying to act like, oh, y'all don't talk about Charlo saying he won't fight Andrade on the zone. So I talked about it on Split Decision. So be on the lookout for the cookout. We back on the map and we finna take over. So follow Lunatune Boxing for the funniest boxing memes. Check out my man for the funniest boxing memes on Instagram, period. And check out all these links in the description box below, including my link on IKTV. And to be continued on the next episode of IKTV. So subscribe below if you're trying to get smarter by the minute. If you're trying to get dumb about a second, don't. And listen to these casual fans or old media. And that being said, to be continued on the next episode of IKTV. Peace, and we out here.